Welcome to a movie Monday. It's been a while.
Yeah, we lied twice because, yeah, guess what? It's the first of the month. Fuck that.
Yeah, well, we said it was going to be 2 weeks in between until we watched this. Then it turns out it was 3 weeks. Oh well.
Oh
Uh,
well,
Yeah.
shit
and
happens.
yeah, and even though it's the first thing of the month, where we know that we still wanted to do this, we'll do a show next week, which we'll talk about after we're done with this. But what did we do today?
We watched The Batman,
Yes.
the 2022 film,
James Pattinson, where he looks more like a vampire in this movie than any of the Twilight movies.
which is very weird to say, actually. He even flew.
He even flew
Oh
as a
yeah,
bat.
that's true.
Not successfully, but he flew.
He
He
flew.
tried.
Oh yeah, he flew and he interacted with a bat.
Yes.
Yeah. He is now more of a vampire now than he was like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Which is astounding.
I know.
But
This poor man.
yeah, I had heard good things about the movie and everything, and I was like, well, we should watch it. So we watched it.
Yes.
And it did not disappoint.
It was actually kind of horrific though.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I had the feeling based on like the trailers that I'd seen that this might have a bit more of a kind of tone like that, which honestly I kind of like.
I do like
Yeah.
the genres this movie touched upon, like the detective thriller gangster movie crossover thing. That was like for me, but also it was horrific with some of the scenes. Like the actual framing of those scenes was so good. It was so
Yeah.
scary.
I also appreciate that we're going back to the fact that, Batman doesn't kill people.
No, he just
Like,
strings them
that's-
up like doilies.
Like, that's actually a point that's brought up in the film multiple times. Like, why don't you kill these people? And he's like, no, if you kill these people, then you cross the line and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they make it a point that even though he like was punching someone's face out and everything, the guy was still alive and everything too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the problems that I've seen with like any sort of like DC situation is that whenever they do a Batman thing, it's supposed to be this like really serious and like actual criminals or stuff, and then it's like, by the way, but like Superman also exists, and it's like, wait a minute, like there's like always this disconnect of like, hold on, and like honestly nothing I don't think has really gotten that balance right. Even like the animated stuff, what I think has done it probably the best.
Mm-hmm.
Batman in like Justice League, like the show, it does feel different than like him in the Batman animated series. And again, I think both of them are done well, but it does feel different. I don't think anything has really managed to figure that out. So, but it works here because everything is grounded, so it's not an issue as of right now. We'll see what they decide to do for the future of this. I did see on Wikipedia they plan on doing some more movies, but they are still like Batman movies, not like So okay, fine. We'll see how they go. We'll see where they go from there.
Yeah, I also saw on Wikipedia that this Batman series is supposed to also be separate from the DCEU.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of which they're thinking of introducing Robin, which will be very interesting because we haven't seen a Robin
since Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Forever.
Yeah, I mean, again, technically, there was that guy at Dark Knight Rises who is like,
he doesn't count.
He doesn't count. He wasn't called Robin.
I know. I don't think he counts either, but I'm just saying. Yeah, I would be curious to see how they would handle Robin.
I would love to see another, like an actual Robin, and I kind of hope that they make him a younger Robin, because like I understand the idea of putting an older Robin in, and like with like child labor laws that would be easier, but I think just having this reclusive, scary man take care of someone younger than him is a good idea. Introduces balance.
To be fair, you're also a simp for dads.
I am. By the way, as usual, I will die for Jim Gordon.
Yeah,
he's peak dad. I love him.
Okay, maybe I'm just a sick fuck, but considering the tease at the end and the overall tone of this movie, I kind of want them to do something with Jason Todd. Which, if you don't know, and spoiler, I guess, but this is kind of the thing that Jason Todd is. Jason Todd is known as the one who dies. So
Right, yeah.
from Joker. So and that hasn't been done in live action. So
But would they really skip Dick Grayson though? Because he's the most popular one, isn't he?
I guess I don't know. Again, like that's why I'm not saying I think they will do this. I'm just saying that that's kind of where my mind went.
I'm just gonna say protect Jim Gordon. I am a simp for dads, not because I like am attracted to them, because I'm just like, I just want to give you a hug.
You want to give them a Christmas present.
Yeah, I want to give them a Christmas present and an ugly Christmas sweater.
Oh my god.
That's all they need in their lives.
But what was I gonna say? Yeah, I'm excited for the Robin thing. I think Dick Grayson would also be a cool.
I also just like how they did some like the Riddler, so because he's not usually the one.
Yeah, I was gonna point that out too, because usually when people think Batman, they're like, oh, okay, it's gonna be the Joker or something like that. That's always the one that shows up and everything. But in this case, it's like the Riddler, and even though the Joker does show, it's like a very small cameo at the end of the film.
Is that a spoiler?
I guess. I don't know. I didn't.
It's fine.
It's fine.
I also just like how the Penguin is in here, but he's kind of like a side character. He's the small. He's small potatoes.
Yeah.
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 I like that.
Because here's the thing. I don't remember if I knew that the Riddler was going to be in this movie before the trailers, or if we found out with the first trailer. Because I'll be honest, in like pretty much any other Batman media, Riddler's kind of lame.
I can understand.
He's just kind of a doofus. Like, I don't really know what to say. Like, he's never found him that threatening or interesting or anything. But then when I saw in the trailer they're going for this sort of like almost like kind of serial killer vibe, I was like, okay.
It's like Zodiac Killer kind
of.
It actually says in the Wikipedia that it's kind of based off of the Zodiac Killer.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, that's new, and I can see that working to some degree. Now, I have a couple comments about this. First of all, it did feel pretty similar to Heath Ledger's The Joker. Not the same, and I'm not saying it's like a ripoff or whatever, but it is pretty close, in demeanor at least, and like acting and stuff. To be fair, Heath Ledger's Joker was very good, so, you know, whatever. But that was something where I kind of noticed. And the other thing, okay, I told these two that, like, even back when we first said we were going to watch this, that there was a thing I wanted to talk about. There is a not insignificant percent of people on the internet who think the Riddler in this movie is hot.
What?
And I say this because I am a club advisor for some high school students, and there is at least one of them who thinks it was one of these people. And me, along with a few other people, keep telling this person that they are insane. And that they're like, no, he's so dreamy. And I'm like, you're ridiculous. First of all, not only is he a serial killer, second of all, if you actually look at the guy, not to make fun of the actor, but he kind of looks like a doofus. And to be fair, in the movie, it kind of works. The fact that Riddler as like a person kind of looks like a dingus, I think kind of actually works in favor for the character.
I thought that was an interesting choice, because it's so safe to go with someone who looks scary, like, you know, Penguin. He looks like he's the main bad guy. But then you look at Riddler unmasked, and it's like, oh my god.
Is this the guy?
Riddler looks like a doofier version of me. And like, again,
like, this is a normal looking guy, you
right,
know?
And so like it works for that, but I'm like, he's not how he's portrayed. Hot. He's not hot. Like, again, I don't think I'm particularly good looking. I think I look better than he does. So like, I'm sorry, it doesn't. So I just have to say, especially after watching this movie, y'all crazy. So I don't know what it is about why that's a thing, but it's a thing.
It's weird. I don't know what to say to that.
It's concerning.
It is very concerning.
So that was the one thing I was like, I have to mention this. So there you go.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, the fact that he does look kind of like just kind of a doofus, and like that, I think that actually kind of overall works. And what also is interesting is that, like, even though I said he kind of is similar to Heath Ledger's Joker, he does I don't know the right word for this, but like his acting in terms of like because when he kind of like yells and kind of goes off in certain moments and like in like the recordings and stuff, it again how he does it is not like normally what you would think of as like a movie performance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when he yells, he sounds like he gets like really high pitched and squeaky voice. You know what I mean? But like that kind of makes it more realistic.
Yeah, like how you would think these videos would go.
Like this is why I say it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
This is a scary movie.
Yeah. So it's interesting in terms of that, and I think it's again, especially like we said, going the serial killer angle, I think is interesting. I would also again be curious to see as these movies continue, what else do they do and who else do they go for? Now, I did see in the Wikipedia thing they were thinking of the Court of Owls, which I don't know very much about. So I can't really comment about that too much. I know it's basically.
They appear in the MA series that much?
They're not. I don't think they're at like in the DCAU at all. They're in one of the DCAMU movies. A lot of acronyms in this, I know. Different canon. And the problem with that though is they're in the movie that also has like 3 other plots going on. So the movie itself is kind of messy, and so basically it's sort of like it's Gotham only Illuminati basically. So that's kind of what, again, I'm oversimplifying, but that's basically what it is. And so I am kind of curious to see how would they handle that and what's the kind of deal with that, because honestly I feel like it'd kind of be like a slightly just more professional quote unquote version of what actually happens here in this movie, where you have this group of elite people that are maneuvering shit behind the scenes. It's like, well, that's kind of what this movie was talking about. So I don't know. So again, I'm just curious to see what they do. But besides that, again, obviously there's the Joker thing at the end, so that could be a thing. I did look up who who was actually like his voice or whatever. It's someone who it's not like an actor who like has played him before. It's not Jared Leto.
Thank God it's not.
It's actually, weirdly enough, it's someone who was in Eternals.
Really?
Who I was like, oh, that guy. And again, it's someone who, when thinking about who would look like Joker, is not a person I would think of. But again, that could be used as the advantage if we actually see their performance. So
they did do that with Joaquin Phoenix, though.
That's true.
Yeah. It's not him either. But so again, it's interesting curiosities to see where they go. But at the same time, I think as a standalone thing, this works quite well too, right?
Yeah.
It's not like actually. This is something else that I keep thinking of things I want to bring up. This is going to be a weird comment, but I see if you can understand what I'm getting at. This kind of feels like a second movie. This is not a criticism, but what I mean by that is like, I feel like a lot of times
started in the middle of the action.
Well, no, like when you have like a trilogy, often you have the first movie that sort of sets everyone up, and there's an initial conflict that sort of gets everything going, and then it's like, oh, we did that thing and we saved the day, but there's like maybe something coming up in the future, right? The second movie is like, we're in the middle of the shit, and there's a bunch of stuff going on. Shit's been bad, still shit's continuing bad, and we stopped the main bad guy, but like shit's still really bad. Right? Again, like this movie ends with the city fucked. Like, not only are like so many people gone, people in power, but like the city flooded the way that it is, like that's cataclysmic. Like, that's honestly, that's one of those things where it's like, how are they actually going to figure this out? That's like a huge problem. That's like massive hurricane level flooding that would ruin things for a long time. It's one of those things where it's like, I feel like the second movie is usually ones where it's like the heroes kind of didn't succeed. You know what I mean? Right. And I feel like that's kind of how this movie, I don't know, it was a weird thought that I had, but again, not a criticism, it's just something that a thought that I had in my mind, which is interesting. But usually I feel like the first movie, it's like usually a little bit more triumphant. Does that make sense? I don't know. So, but yeah, and then I
get what you mean, but I feel like at the same time I still did think of it as a starting point, because I guess it's like we're getting introduced to a new Batman, and it's kind of like start over and stuff like that.
I do really like Rob Pattinson as I don't know why I keep saying James, maybe it's because it's British. Rob Pattinson as Batman.
Yeah.
He does the performance very well, and
Yeah.
I guess this is what people mean by they were like, wow, like he's actually a very good Batman.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
Oh, I also like Catwoman too.
Yeah, I like this
And how they tease
this version of her.
and how they also showed that she's bisexual too.
yeah, because like I think we said back when like we were talking about the Dark Knight, I think the weakest part of the Dark Knight actually is Batman, and I don't think he's bad. He's just sort of kind of like fine.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something where it's kind of a difference where he's done very well here. Yeah, and I did think Catwoman was overall pretty good. I will say I kind of didn't super buy like the romance thing that angle they go in a little bit.
No.
That said,
I was more like she's looking for her girlfriend.
Right.
Yeah.
That said, I feel like they almost never get that right. Like even with movies, but even like shows and stuff. The only time I've actually seen it where it's like kind of seems to work was again one of the animated movies that was kind of its own thing that I saw, which was Batman Hush, which honestly overall that film's not super great, but the actual sort of, because how that movie is portrayed, it's that they've like already kind of hooked up and are already kind of together. So if that's, and I think that was actually kind of interesting. But yeah, the whole thing was like, oh, Catwoman like falls in love with Batman. It's like every time I've seen that happen, it just seems like it comes out of nowhere, and it's like, why?
They seem to be better off being friends.
So, yeah,
just let Catwoman have her girlfriend.
Yeah,
so, have her girlfriend, please.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's one of those things where it's like I don't feel like this ever really works, but whatever. It's not a huge thing here, so it's like whatever. But yeah, her characterization herself and the actress did well in that. So yeah. Yeah. I think there was someone else I wanted to comment on, but I forgot who it was.
I will die for Jim Gordon.
Oh my god.
Did you want to comment on? Trying to think of what.
Well, there is something I want to comment on.
Alfred was pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, Alfred. Oh, yeah. He was helping out actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice to see.
And then he got blown up.
Yeah. A lot of people get blown up in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, actually.
There is a good boy. There is a doggo swimming.
Oh yeah, at the end.
The dog swimming.
The dog swimming, and then Catwoman with all of her cats.
I was just like, oh my god, it's a dog!
There were a lot more animals in this movie than I thought.
Yeah, there were bats.
There were rats.
There were cats.
Rats.
Dogs.
Dog.
Well,
one dog.
Yep.
There's a penguin.
I was just
penguin, falcon, falcon, pigeon. Yeah, a lot of animals actually got dropped in this movie. But one other point that I wanted to bring up is the cinematography was really cool too. I think it also really sold the grim.
Yeah, like one of the scenes that I was really impressed by was that one where it was like lit up by the gunshots.
Yeah.
That was
I like
really
that
cool.
scene too.
Yeah, Matt Reeves has done a lot of so he's the one who did the second and third Planet of the Apes movies.
Oh,
and
okay, that explains it. That explains why Andy Serkis is there too.
Oh yeah, but especially because I actually just kind of recently rewatched those films like a monthish or so ago, and especially the third one, because actually, so the second movie, even though he's the director of the second movie, he kind of like came in at the last second to direct it because originally the guy who did the first movie was going to do the second movie. So there's a bit of stuff with there. But the third movie, he was on it from the beginning. And if you watch the third Planet of the Apes movie and this movie, there are a lot of kind of like slower scenes where characters just sort of exist for a while. And I think that's done quite well in terms of getting like the emotion and, you know, the sort of vibe of the scene. And so he's good at doing that. And I know like you were kind of saying this right as we finished, like, wow, that was a long movie. And it is. But it doesn't feel like it drags.
Yeah.
So,
it doesn't feel like it drags. It was more like my bladder was like, please, use the bathroom.
Yeah. So it doesn't feel too long, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good there.
I just remembered this one other point, which was that I found it interesting how one of the things Batman actually has to deal with is that the world is not black and white. Because in the beginning of the movie, and I feel like with many other movies, it's very, he's just kind of thrown into the gray-ish role, especially in the ones where he kills and stuff like that. And you just kind of have to take it like that. But Batman as a character, starting off as black and white, makes sense given like how he grew up and what, like, they acknowledge the fact that he was privileged in this movie.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And stuff with like Catwoman mentioned it, and then also the Riddler mentioned it too. And so he had this very black and white view, and then when he learns about what his dad did and like what happened with his parents and everything like that, you can tell that he's like, oh my god, what do I do now? I have this really black and white view. What do I do about this? And then Alfred kind of sits him down and is like, look, your parents were good people. It's just that they made a mistake and stuff like that. And I feel like hearing that, you can see how he becomes more gray and he kind of accepts that things are not black and white, which I think is pretty important, especially for the Batman character. And it's also like something that's not really explored too much in superhero movies.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought that theming was actually pretty good in that regard, because it would have been really easy to have thrown his parents under the bus after that revelation. But they kind of acknowledge that no one is completely perfect, but you kind of have to, like with many things in life, you kind of just have to feel things out and see where you want to draw your lines and where you want to acknowledge that people made mistakes and where you want to acknowledge that people are just
really bad,
very terrible people.
Yeah, the theming of this is interesting because, again, a lot of the time, especially what I think is really interesting is the fact that Riddler and like the people who are following him were actually saying that like Batman inspired them.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting because there's a lot of, criticism that I've seen as sort of like kind of philosophical thematic criticism thrown at Batman and kind of superheroes in general, where the idea is like, you're perpetuating the idea that like the way that like society progresses is you find the bad guy and punch him. Right?
Yeah.
And it's like that's inherently a problematic like viewpoint to have. And so I think this is an interesting way of kind of being like, I find bad people and punch them. And so the Riddler's like, hey, I know some bad people, I'm going to punch them. And Batman's like, wait, not like that, right? You know what I mean? So like, it's an interesting idea in terms of how that's portrayed. And it also reminds me of, because again, one of the things that he was saying in one of the video recordings at the end was like, if they want real change, we'll show them real change, and stuff like that, right? And it reminds me of just sort of the overall. I forget the exact quote, and I think I've even said this before, but it's the quote that's, I actually think John Kennedy said it because he was talking about Latin American countries at the time, but he said something like those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable, right? And it's the idea of like, again, the fact that the city is so corrupt and that like, shit's not improving, and so should people flood the city, set off car bombs, and shoot a bunch of people in like a crowded room? No, but you can at least understand why some people would say, well, nothing else is fucking working.
Yeah.
Right. And again, they're still wrong in terms of like, because again, the way that you could say is that wrong is like, okay, let's say they succeeded. How is that going to make anything better?
Yeah.
It's not, right? So it still doesn't work. But again, it's that idea of like, the failure was not, the whole thing of like, oh, the Riddler attacked. That's not where things fell apart. Things fell apart where that could even like, that those kind of people could even show up in the first place.
Yeah.
Right. And again, it's sort of a special situation that's kind of being talked about right now in the US, especially considering a lot of the Supreme Court stuff that's happened right now. Because it's sort of the idea of, again, like, for example, the mayoral candidate was saying at the end there about how, like, we have to get people to trust the institutions again. Right. And it's like, well, yeah. If you do shit, like, and it's the thing, if the institutions pull shit like this, which is completely ridiculous. Of
course, no one's gonna trust them.
Exactly, nobody's gonna have any, not only just trust, but also any faith that actually anything is going to get better, and therefore, what is the alternative? Right? Again, that's the logic. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm saying that's the logic. So again, that's sort of the issue of what's happening, and I think the film kind of pointed that out in a way that was done quite well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we have to. I don't know. Is there anything else anyone wants to say?
I don't think
no.
so.
I think we talked about most of the points.
Okay, then we have to.
It's a good movie. Please watch it.
Yes,
it is good.
We should have said spoiler warning down, put like a graphic or something in the beginning
Whatever.
saying spoilers.
It's fine. Whatever. It's a good movie. Please watch it. You won't
Yes.
regret it.
Yeah, I'm curious what your ratings are going to be for this, though.
I think I will give it.
I'm having a hard time figuring out.
I'm oscillating
What I wanna-
between two numbers.
Mm.
Do you know?
Yeah, I do.
Go
Okay, so
ahead.
one of the things that I've seen is a lot of people saying that, like, this is the best Batman movie. I don't know if I agree with that. It's close, for sure. Basically, for me, especially the ones I've seen, basically the question is this or Dark Knight, right? And I will say they excel at different things. But I think, I don't know, there's like one or two small things in this film that kind of bother me. But like I said, they are really small, and I can know other people don't give a shit. So I'm just kind of being unnecessarily picky. So I don't know. Point is, I'm not going to give it a 10. I'm going to give it a 9, but it's pretty damn close.
I was thinking of giving it a 9. So
Yeah, me too.
I was oscillating between 9 and 8, like a high 8 and a 9.
I think the thing that really sold me with this was just the blending of all the genres I mentioned in the beginning, like the detective, the thriller, and the mafia movie, because I really like all of those, and if done badly, they can be disasters. And if you put them all together, you have a huge risk of just fucking dropping the ball and losing sight of it.
Yeah.
But they really pulled it off with this one.
Yeah, there is a lot that kind of happens in this movie. I will say it's not like there's like a billion plots going on, but the plot that is happening, there's like a lot of steps involved.
It is very like complex.
I think that's where the detective part comes in.
And I really liked that.
Yeah. This definitely, in a worse movie, this definitely could have been just like, you get really lost where it's like, wait, what's going on? Who's doing what? Why do we care? What? You know, and so, yeah, we have seen plenty of those. So it doesn't, it definitely doesn't fall into that. It's okay. Nines are good in this sense. So yeah, so it is a good movie. You should definitely go see it.
Yes.
And again, if someone did say this was they think this is the best Batman movie, I wouldn't say you're obviously wrong. Again, I might even think that if I revisit this at some point or whatever, but I'm just not sure at this point. But yeah, I'm definitely thinking it was a good movie, and I'm curious to see where they go from here.
Yeah,
same.
I'd like to see what the sequels bring, especially if they bring in new stuff that no one's ever really touched upon,
or it's at least especially in live action anyway. Yeah. Well, I guess now next up is.
What is it going to be, Valen?
Yes, it's going to be a show that I am picking, and I was actually not sure what I was gonna, because I remember last month, when you picked Spy X Family, I was like, oh yeah, next month is I have to pick a show. I'll think of something by then, and then it was like, a little bit ago, and I was like, wait, shit, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So, because honestly, like, I haven't really seen anything that I'm just like, yes, we must watch this now, kind of, in the last few months. So I was not really sure, but then I thought about it, and I'm like, and even besides that, actually just today, I had an idea of like, wait, what if we do this other thing? And I'll tell you what the other thing was actually after I stop this recording. But I kind of asked you guys, I was like, what you doing? So I came up with this. So I settled on an idea. It's a show that is currently airing. I've seen not all of it so far, but most of it that's aired so far, and I think you both really like it. I'm actually curious to see what your reaction is going to be to some of this. I think you actually like this more than I do. And I actually like it a decent amount. And it is loosely related, well, not even that loosely related to the Batman, because we are going to be watching Ms. Marvel.
Yes.
Yay!
Specifically, I'm actually not sure how far. Well, I see it's going to be up to you because by the time we watch this, you'll be up to episode 5.
Okay.
So it's up to you if you want to go all the way to episode 5.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah. So we will see. I have currently, as of right now, I have seen up to episode 3. Episode 4 is out, but I haven't watched it, and episode 5 will be out before we watch it. So
Okay.
but yeah, it's good, and I'm curious to see what you guys will think about it. There's definitely some things when I've been watching it where I'm like, heh, they're gonna connect with this a lot. So yeah. So
I am interested, especially while we were actually driving down, there was a billboard. I was like, "Welcome to Jersey City," and it had Miss Marvel on it and stuff like that. And I was like, "Hey!"
We're like, yeah, we'll get to that soon, hopefully.
Now we can get to that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yay!
Perfect.
Okay. So that'll be next week. Yes, next week.
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully, maybe, probably.
Hopefully.
Okay.
We have lied before, but it's fine.
You bad liars, you. Okay, yeah. So next is Ms. Marvel.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.